My name is Lily. I'm 15 now, but this happened when I was just 9. Back then, my parents both worked night shifts. Mom as a nurse, Dad as a warehouse supervisor. It wasn't ideal, but it kept food on the table. During school days, we had a part-time babysitter, Miss Tara. She was sweet, kind, and always brought me puzzles or books. I loved her like a big sister. But that summer, Mom and Dad couldn't afford a sitter anymore. So instead, they sent me to stay with my Aunt Claire and Uncle Ron in Eagle Hollow, Kentucky, while they figured things out. Eagle Hollow was different. Quiet, remote, surrounded by forest on every side. Their house was old with creaky floors, a broken grandfather clock, and this weird smell, like something between pine needles and dust. They had a barn out back and a vegetable garden, and their only neighbor was a half-mile away. At first it was okay. My cousin Jude was a year older than me. We played tag, helped in the garden, and fed their goats. Nights were filled with fireflies and scary stories on the porch. Then one night, something changed. It was around 2:30 a.m. I woke up because I had to pee. Their house didn't have a bathroom upstairs, so I had to go downstairs and cross the living room. As I walked past the window by the stairs, I heard it, a soft tapping. Tap, tap, tap. I stopped. It was coming from the living room window. The curtain was pulled, but I could see the shadow of someone standing there. Tall. Motionless. At first, I thought it might be Uncle Ron. But why would he be outside at 2:30 a.m. just standing there? I didn't breathe. I just stood frozen, listening. Then I heard it. "Lily, come here," a whisper. Faint, scratchy, like someone was talking through a broken walkie-talkie. "Lily, let me in." I bolted to the bathroom, locked the door, and waited. I didn't go back to sleep that night. In the morning, I told Aunt Claire. She smiled, like it was a silly dream, and said it was probably the wind. Jude didn't say anything. He only stared at me shockingly. That night, I made sure the curtains were drawn tight and kept the bedroom door closed. But the next night, it happened again. Same tapping, same whisper. But this time, it was at my bedroom window. Except my room was on the second floor. I didn't look. I didn't move. I buried myself under the blanket, heart hammering in my chest. By the third night, I started seeing him during the day. Not clearly, just a shape between the trees. A figure leaning against the barn or standing near the fence. When I told Jude, he got quiet. Really quiet. Then he said, "You saw him too?" That's when I realized I wasn't imagining it. Jude told me he'd seen someone standing at his window the night before I arrived. He said the man was smiling, a crooked, stretched smile that didn't move, just teeth. Wide. Still. We both went to Aunt Claire and Uncle Ron, but this time they didn't laugh. Uncle Ron called the sheriff, who came by that evening. He found footprints, bare feet, leading from the woods around the barn to the house and back again. The sheriff said maybe it was a drifter or someone high on something. He promised to send a deputy by the next night. We slept with the lights on. Nothing happened that night. But on the 5th night, the scariest night of my life, it all came to a head. It was storming. Thunder rattled the walls. Jude and I were sleeping in the living room because the upstairs felt too far from the adults. Around 1:45 a.m., lightning flashed, and in that blink, we both saw it. A man, inside, standing in the hallway, not moving, just watching us. He wore torn clothes. His skin looked pale, like wax. His eyes were wide, empty, and too far apart. But his smile never changed. We screamed. Uncle Ron came running, shotgun in hand, but the man was gone. Just gone. The back door was open. Rain poured in. The sheriff came out again and found muddy footprints leading inside the house, not to the back door, but from the attic hatch in the hallway ceiling. He'd been hiding in the attic. That next morning, we packed our things. Mom and Dad drove 5 hours to pick me up early. A week later, the sheriff called my parents. They found the man. Sort of. They found his body in the woods, hanging from a tree behind the barn. But here's the thing. He'd been dead for over a year. A missing person. Local guy named Dale who vanished months before I ever came to Eagle Hollow. We never figured out how he got in or how long he'd been watching us. Jude and I never went back. Aunt Claire and Uncle Ron sold the house later that fall. To this day, I never sleep with the window uncovered. And sometimes when thunder cracks at night, I swear I hear tapping. Tap, tap, tap.
I was 8 when it happened. That age where dreams start blurring with memories, and some things you wish were dreams never leave at all. My brother Noah was 10. We shared a bedroom on the second floor of our creaky old farmhouse just outside of a forgotten town in rural Iowa. You wouldn't find it on most maps. The kind of place where nights are quiet. Too quiet. Bedtime was 8:30. Non-negotiable. If Dad caught us awake after that, especially during the week, there'd be consequences. Harsh ones. I can't remember if it was a school night. All I remember is being shaken awake by Noah. His voice was low, urgent. Shh, listen. I sat up, still groggy. The room was dark, the only light coming from the hallway nightlight just under our door. Then I heard it, a woman's voice, calling our names. Noah, Logan. It wasn't shouting. It wasn't even loud. It was soft, rhythmic, almost loving. I said, "It's Mom," and started moving off the bed, but Noah grabbed my wrist. "That's not Mom." His voice was so calm, so certain. It unsettled me more than the voice. I whispered, "What do you mean? You heard her too." "I know, but it's not her." I didn't believe him. Couldn't. So I crept toward the bedroom door. Just outside our room was a narrow hall, the kind that felt too dark even with a light on. Straight ahead was a small bathroom. To the right, the stairwell to the first floor. That stairwell had a door too, one we usually kept shut to keep the warmth in during winter. I leaned my ear against it. The voice was clearer now, softer, sweeter. "Noah, Logan, come downstairs." I whispered, "See, that's her." Noah didn't move. She never says our names like that. It was true. The way the voice lingered on each syllable didn't sound right. Like she was trying too hard to sound familiar. But I had to know. I unlatched the stairwell door and pulled it open slowly, just enough to peek through. There she was, a woman, standing at the bottom of the staircase, half in shadow, half in light from the moon through the front window. I couldn't see her face, but I knew one thing instantly. That wasn't my mother. The shape of her head was wrong. Her limbs too still. She didn't breathe, didn't sway, just stood there, like a statue that could speak. Then her head twitched, just a little, and she said, in that same soft voice, "Hi, sweetheart, come down." I slammed the door and locked it, heart racing. Ran back to our room and locked that too. Noah didn't ask what I saw. He just nodded. We sat in silence for what felt like forever. Then we agreed. On the count of 3, we'd scream and stomp to wake our parents. 1, 2, 3. We screamed as loud as we could, stomped on the floor like thunder. Footsteps thundered up the stairs. Our dad yelled through the locked door, furious. But when they burst in and saw our faces, saw that I was crying and that Noah was dead silent, something changed in them. We told them everything. My mom asked what the woman looked like. We said we didn't know, only that she sounded like her, almost exactly like her, and she knew our names. That was the part that scared me most. My mom didn't say much. She just said we did the right thing, that we were smart. She told us to keep our doors locked at night, something she'd never said before. Later that night, a police car pulled up outside. Noah and I watched from the window. We weren't allowed downstairs. We begged our parents the next day to tell us who it was, why she was there. They only said one thing: "We're proud of you. You didn't open the door." Years passed. We grew up, moved out, moved on. But that night stayed with me. And one day, over dinner, I asked again. Asked my mom if she remembered. She smiled. Not a warm smile, a tight one. "You remember that?" she said. I nodded. Who was it? She hesitated. Then, finally, there are people who know things they shouldn't, places where things slip through. That night, maybe both. That was all she said. She never spoke of it again. And sometimes, late at night, when my dreams slip just far enough into the dark, I hear it again. Noah, Logan, come down. But now I live alone. And Noah, he died 2 years ago. So whoever's calling, they're not calling for him anymore. They're calling for me.
I moved to a rural corner of Iowa about a year ago, not to start fresh, but to pause life for a bit. After everything back home fell apart, the breakup, the layoff, the burned bridges, I needed space, quiet, something simple. So I found this house. Tiny, worn, but livable. Rent was laughably low, probably because it sat right on the edge of a massive cornfield that looked like it hadn't been tended to in years. The landlord said it was once a family farm, but nobody touched the land anymore. Still, the air was clean, the nights were silent. No neighbors, just wind and stalks. The house backed directly up to the field. A creaky wooden fence separated the tall corn from the porch, maybe 6 feet of breathing room. In the evening, I'd sit out there with a drink and watch the rows sway like waves. Sometimes I'd swear they were moving even when the air was still. Things were peaceful until the night of October 17th. It was cold. One of those nights where the wind whistles just right to make the trees sound alive. I stood on the back porch, smoking the last cigarette of the night, when I heard it. A scream. It wasn't an animal, not the cry of a fox or a coyote. This was sharp, human, and terrified. A child's voice, faint but close, coming from somewhere in the field. I froze, heart racing, cigarette trembling between my fingers. Then it came again. Without thinking, I bolted inside, grabbed my hunting rifle and flashlight, and ran toward the fence. I called out, "Hey, you okay? Where are you?" Silence. I climbed the fence, tripping into the rows of corn. The stalks were brittle, cracking beneath my boots. I waved my flashlight left and right, shouting for the kid again. Nothing. I called the police. I didn't want to be the guy who ignored a child in trouble. They said they'd send someone. While I waited, I searched on my own, row after row, stalks scratching my arms, ears straining for the smallest sound. Still nothing. By the time the cops arrived, I was on edge. We searched together for nearly an hour. Flashlights scanned the corn. Officers called out. But there were no footprints, no broken stalks, no toys, no shoes, no kid. They wrote up a report, told me to call again if anything happened. I told myself it was a prank, a sick joke maybe, some bored teenager. But something didn't sit right. That same night, just before bed, I was brushing my teeth when I noticed a flickering glow outside the window. It was faint, orange, dancing. I rushed to the window and felt my stomach flip. Fire. Tiny flames were rising in the cornfield, maybe 30 yards out, just past the fence line. I could see them swaying in the breeze, trying to catch and grow. I sprinted outside, calling 911 on the way, screaming that the field was on fire. I grabbed the garden hose, praying it was long enough, and dove over the fence. I stomped through the rows, spraying the flames. Miraculously, the fire hadn't spread too far yet. I was able to douse it, just barely, but the smoke and heat had me coughing and shaking. As I backed away to catch my breath, I saw it. Movement. In my bedroom window. Someone was inside the house. I dropped the hose and sprinted back, burst through the door and froze in the kitchen. Everything was trashed. Cabinets wide open, dishes shattered on the floor. My fridge door hung ajar. Whoever had been inside wasn't just wandering. They were looking for something. Then I heard the front door slam. I ran after it, but by the time I got outside, the yard was empty. No one, no footprints, just corn swaying like nothing had happened. The cops showed up 10 minutes later with the fire department. This time, they took me seriously. Attempted arson and breaking and entering. Dogs were brought out. The field and house were searched top to bottom. Again, nothing. No signs of anyone, like they'd vanished. For the next few weeks, I didn't sleep right. Every time the wind rattled the walls, I jumped. Every whisper outside the window made me grip the rifle tighter. I left a light on in every room. I stopped going outside after dark. I wanted to believe it was over, but deep down, I knew it wasn't. Because the scream I heard that first night, it still plays in my head sometimes, late at night. Not like a memory, but like it's happening again. Same voice, same tone, like it's still out there, waiting.